Welcome to the Fantasy Source Fastball podcast. My name is David Arnott. I'm sitting next to Matt Lutovsky, one of the Fantasy Source Baseball writers. I am in a position that is probably familiar to some of you, probably not many of you, but some of you. I am in last place in the Fantasy Source Experts League. You can actually see it, and if you read Fantasy Source, you've seen our drafts, you've seen all of that stuff. Well, I got the first pick overall. I got Albert Pujols, and after that, everything went downhill. So I've brought Matt in here. He's going to be my guru. He's going to give me a little bit of advice.
Yeah, well, I'm in like 8th, I think, so.
Well, that's better than I am.
That's
better than I am.
All right. Fair enough.
I mean, now my first point, the first thing that's going wrong for me can be summed up in 2 words, and that's Josh Beckett. Josh Beckett has an ERA over 7. He's not getting strikeouts. His walk rate is up. If I go over to Fangraphs, I see that his fastball speed is down. And now he goes into batting practice and tweets his back. Do we buy or sell on Josh Beckett? Should I be trying to sell him off, even though I'd be selling low?
Well, it's interesting you bring this up. This was not a plan, everyone listening, I swear. But I'm writing the inside pitch column for tomorrow. Have a section on Josh Beckett and say it's one of the rare times when you probably should sell low, especially if your team is not doing well, which yours isn't right now. And the simple reason is he's hurt. He's had problems with injuries in the past. Like you said, there's a lot of indicators that don't bode well for him. His K rate, his walk rate being the biggest two. Now, his FIP is pretty good, at least relatively speaking. I think it's like in the 4.8 range.
Right.
So from that standpoint, like I say, look, he's going to get better. He's Josh Beckett. You know he's going to get better, and he probably will. But the bottom line is, how long can you wait? And if you're in last place, or if you're even just in the bottom half of your league standings, you can't wait that long. And if he has a DL stint, or who knows?
Here's what I'm thinking is that I'm not hurting for strikeouts, and Beckett is a strikeout guy first and foremost in fantasy baseball. You think to yourself, okay, if he has a great season, he can bring that ERA down near 3. The whip will be down, and he'll definitely get wins with the Red Sox. But in a non-great season, you always hope the strikeouts will be there, but then the other stuff won't necessarily be there for him, especially if he gets hurt and only makes 20 starts.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing. I think the injury thing is the kind of the added wrinkle to him versus some of these other slow starting pitchers, because we know it's there. We know it's prevalent, these injury issues. And I hate to say sell low on a guy who's so proven, who's over the course of his career has proven to be low whip, low ERA, high strikeout, plays for a good team, but at a certain point you have to find an owner who's targeting you and say, all right, I'll trade him for a decent bat. And
all right, so off the top of your head, let me just bring an example out here. What do you think I should be looking for as far as a trade? I've been sending feelers out there. People are giving me offers that on the face of them, I just kind of laugh. It's like, really, you want to offer me Troy Gloss and Cameron Maybin for Josh Beckett? Are we sure we're talking about the right Josh Beckett? That sort of thing. Do you think that it is, you say sell low on him. Are we at the point now, a month and a half into the season, where you just say to yourself, especially if you're not in a keeper league like we are, we're not in a keeper league, you say to yourself, if Beckett puts it all back together, I couldn't have seen that coming. You know what? I tried to get the best I could get on a 2-for-1 deal like that.
Yeah, I think that's one way to do it. Or you just find another guy, for instance, another kind of like a sell high hitter. Another owner might think like, hey, I got Vernon Wells. He's going to go downhill. Look, Vernon Wells isn't going to finish with the stats he has.
Austin Kearns.
But pretty good player. So if you get that, if you need offense, it all depends what you need primarily. If you trade him just for a closer, if you really need saves, maybe you get a decent closer out of someone like a Leo Nunez, who's just been fantastic this year, and that helps you, kind of strengthen a hold in saves, get saves, lower that ERA and whip. I don't know if there's any deal. The big thing, you don't want to trade him for more crap. That's the key, obviously.
You don't want to pile the trash high.
Right. Like you were saying, that Cameron Maybin one, that's just, to me, that's who's winning,
Right.
What are you getting from that? But, yeah, if you get a player who's pretty good, why not?
Okay, so we're kind of getting into fantasy baseball trade theory, if you will. Does the same sort of thing hold for position players? Because I've also got Curtis Granderson on my team. He wasn't he's got that 2020 potential, but he's also a guy who hit something like 250 last year. It might have even been lower than that, and it feels like it was 250. Yeah. But And he's already hurt for the Yankees. He's going to be out for a while. Brett Gardner's not exactly doing terribly for them. And Marcus Timms, they seem to really like him. And they may even limit, as crazy as this may sound, it's not out of the realm of possibility that they'll limit Granderson's play just to keep him healthy for the playoffs. Is he, for hitters, do you have the same sort of perspective on them that you might for an injury-prone pitcher?
Yeah, I think you kind of do with a guy like Granderson. People loved him coming into the year. He was like lefty in Yankee Stadium. That lineup, what can go wrong? Well, A, can get injured. B, he can continue struggling against lefties, which he's doing. So there are things that can go wrong. We've already seen it. He had that monstrous first week and really very quiet after that. Certainly does things well. Does a lot of things that you like for your fantasy team, but not a great average hitter. And we're in an average league. And, if he's on your DL and he's not taking up a roster spot, no big deal. But if you have multiple injuries, which I think you said you do.
Yeah, I had, for a brief blissful moment, I had 5 guys on the DL.
Yeah, when you're dealing with that, you got to do something. And I think a lot of owners still view Granderson as a guy who's going to have a really big year. You can probably get decent value for him at this point. And I think trading him, especially if you're low in the standings and getting some for him, is a good move.
One of our favorite phrases around the office is that you don't have to give those home runs back. Right. If John Butt, you happen to have John Butt when he hits 2 home runs, you don't have to give those back. Right. They're yours. You get to keep them, sell high on them, move on. Yeah. And same sort of thing. I feel like I'm starting to come around on this. Is that when a guy is on the DL for an extended period of time, Granderson is right on that borderline. When I'm thinking I want to keep him, I'm thinking I might be able to just say, forget it. The next month, I want to get stats instead of leaving that guy there and having to go with Delmon Young or whoever's on the top of the waiver wire out there.
Yeah, no, I mean, definitely it's a tough call. And along the lines of what you were saying, if you don't give the home runs back, you don't get credit for something that wasn't on your team.
Exactly.
Like all the people who just strained a muscle trying to pick up Johnny Cueto, you don't get that one hitter. You missed it, and I thought that was the best with Starlin Castro.
Yes,
the people who freaked out. Like bottom line with a guy like him, he's probably hitting no more than 5 home runs this year, and probably getting no more than 35 RBIs. He just used up 1 homer and 6 RBIs in his first game, and everyone's picking him up now. And I don't know, he might have peaked.
I mean, the history of 20-year-old shortstops is not very good for offense.
Well, it's almost become its own cottage industry lately. We've seen these guys like Andrus, Alcides Escobar, to a certain extent, Ivers Cabrera in San Diego, and even going back, a few years before that, Jose Reyes. These guys don't do much their first year, generally speaking. It takes a while. I mean, these guys are so young, and they come up, especially a guy like Castro here who hasn't played above AA before his call-up. You can't expect that guy to be a consistent producer at all. If he is, you count your blessings, but don't count on it, for sure.
Matt Lutovsky, thank you for joining me on this podcast.
Yeah, no problem. I enjoyed it.
And what's the piece you're writing about for tomorrow?
That's Inside Pitch. Goes up every Thursday on Fantasy Source.
All right, make sure you guys read that. sportingnews.com.